Hi, everyone. This is Dan Bressler from the Autism Resource Center at Options and Advocacy for McHenry County. And today I wanted to bring you a little change from the behavior videos that we've been doing. And I want to talk a little bit about emotions. And emotions and behavior are really closely linked. But it's important that while we do pay attention to behavior and we work on some behavioral things, that we're also not ignoring those emotional skills in our children, because ultimately, if we teach children how to cope more effectively with challenging emotions, that's going to have a lot of really positive impacts on their behavior as well. So, in terms of coping skills, there are a few important things to remember when you're looking at teaching them. Obviously, teaching coping skills is a huge topic, so we're going to try to keep it small and basic today. Just a couple of little bite-sized pieces for you to think about incorporating into your home routine. So, when we're trying to teach coping skills, we want to make sure that we're modeling coping skills. We want to validate the emotions that children are experiencing. We want to incorporate visual tools into this routine. And we really need to be practicing coping skills. They're not something that we're going to learn if we're only doing them when we need them, when we're feeling sad or angry or upset. And then the final step is really asking for help as the parent to get some strategies for teaching these coping skills. So when we talk about modeling coping skills, it's kind of a multi-step process. We as the parent want to be modeling emotional identification, because you can't utilize a coping skill if you can't even identify what emotion you're experiencing. So we want to model emotional identification. We want to model choosing a coping skill for that emotion. And then we want to model using the coping skill. And so this can be sort of vulnerable as a parent and a little bit unnatural too, because usually in our daily lives, if we experience stress or frustration or whatever other emotion, it's sort of an automatic thing. We use coping skills all the time. But it's important that we sort of say out loud what we're doing. We narrate that process, because that's how our children are going to learn. Children with autism often have a little bit of difficulty learning in that sort of innate, unspoken way. And so it's important that we are speaking out loud what we're doing to make that step-by-step process of utilizing a coping skill more concrete and understandable. So what that might look like is if let's say I'm working from home and there's a lot of noise happening and it's really bothering me and stressing me out, I might say out loud, I'm feeling really stressed right now. I think I need to take a few deep breaths to help me calm down. And so I said out loud what emotion I'm experiencing. I said what coping skill I'm going to use. And then I very visibly show that I'm using that coping skill. And maybe I even, after using that coping skill, reflect on whether or not it helped. I might take those deep breaths and say, I feel a lot calmer. I think I'm ready to get back to work now. And showing that step by step can be a really important way of teaching our children how to use coping skills themselves if they see us doing it. So the second thing I really want everyone to keep in mind is that it's so important to validate the emotions that our children are experiencing, regardless of whether or not we feel that they're reasonable or appropriate. This happens. This isn't just an autism thing. This is a children thing. Children experience intense emotions, and often they don't know what to do with them. Sometimes it may seem like the size of their reaction is not matching the size of the problem. That's okay. That's a part of being a child, is that every tiny thing feels like a catastrophe sometimes. And although it seems a little bit silly to us, maybe, it's a very real experience for them. And it's important that they feel seen and heard and understood, rather than judged. And so I threw a little Fred Rogers quote in here, Mr. Rogers. I know that he may be a controversial figure to some folks, but I think he's right on the money here when he said there's no should or should not when it comes to having feelings. They're part of who we are, and their origins are beyond our control. When we can believe that, we may find it easier to make constructive choices about what to do with those feelings. And so that's the important part, is that whether we believe that a child should or should not be experiencing this emotion, or that it is or is not reasonable, in order for that child to make a constructive choice about what to do with their feeling, it's important that they feel seen, heard, and validated. And so we can say simple statements that do that. hey, it looks like you're feeling really upset right now. I'm sorry that you're struggling so much with this. Let's make a good choice about how we can get back to a happier place. Something as simple as that can really have a huge impact on how a child moves forward through a difficult experience. So the next thing to consider is sort of what visual tools can we incorporate into our coping skills, because as we all know, visual tools can be really, really powerful, especially for people with autism, in helping them conceptualize and make more concrete these options. So here's a visual choice board. This is actually a free resource. It's on Teachers Pay Teachers. Down in the left-hand corner there, I put a little link to it, tinyurl.com/SYS5P6Y. That'll take you straight to this. It's a free download. You'll have to make a Teachers Pay Teachers account, but if you like how this looks, you're more than welcome to do that, and it's totally free. So that's how I got it. So this is just a choice board where we may just present this. If there's a difficult time, you can say, hey, it looks like you're feeling really frustrated about this math thing. Let's pick a coping skill and then come back to it later. And they can see all the different choices, and there are nice illustrations there. So that's one way of doing it for sure. Here's another one. This is a little bit more advanced, maybe for some of our older children or children who have a little bit more experience. This comes straight from the zones of regulation. So if your child works with the zones of regulation, either with their social worker at school or maybe their occupational therapist, this may be familiar to them. And so this actually is sort of an if-then situation. So if I feel tired or sad, then I can try, and then you can list those coping skills for that emotion. When I'm calm and happy, I can try. You can list things there that'll help keep them calm and happy. Maybe it's using a fidget while they work or asking for help when they need it. And then it goes through frustrated or silly, and also angry or mad. So this is in the zones of regulation, but it doesn't need to be. We don't need to use zones of regulation language if that's unfamiliar in order for an if-then coping skill system to work. We can make a system that just says, if I feel angry, then I can, whatever those coping skills are for that student, if it's taking deep breaths, if it's asking for help, those sorts of things. If I feel silly, or if I feel like I need to move, sometimes that's a big issue when working from home, that we feel cooped up and a little bit bonkers. Then I can try doing jumping jacks, doing wall push-ups, maybe some more of those sensory break options, which we're going to talk more about in a different video. But regardless of which way you go or where your child is at in this process, it is going to be important to incorporate visual supports for these situations, because otherwise coping skills are very abstract. So it's important that we have a concrete resource that we can look to. Finally, it's important to practice coping skills. And it's just like any other skill that we want to get at, we have to practice. And just like, for example, if you play an instrument, you don't practice at the concert. So with coping skills, you don't practice them when you're already feeling angry or sad or frustrated or whatever. We need to practice outside of the context when we're calm and happy. And so I would recommend building this practice into your daily routine for the whole family. Everyone can benefit from practicing coping skills. Maybe you call it meditation, maybe it's yoga, whatever. We can incorporate those things into our daily routine. And so it feels a little bit silly maybe at first, but it's really important that we build into our schedule. Maybe we have a visual schedule at home, and it'll be, wake up, eat breakfast, practice taking deep breaths. And that can just be sitting and calmly taking 3, 5, 10 deep breaths, however many you decide, and do it as a family. This shouldn't be necessarily something that you're instructing your child to do. This should be something that we do together. So it's a positive family experience. And then the other benefit of this is that we all in the household have the same language around coping skills, and we all have the same sort of choices to choose from. And we may learn about each other that different coping skills work differently for different people. And that's excellent. So finally, if you have specific questions about your child and coping skills, because everyone has different coping skills and coping skills work different for everybody, it's important that you reach out to the folks who work with your child on coping skills. So that might be their school social worker. that might be their occupational therapist at school. Maybe they see an outside, a private counselor or psychologist. They're really great people to ask. If you have questions, contact your Options and Advocacy Service Coordinator. We're always happy to help with these things. We can help you put together visuals. We can send you emails. We're out of the office right now, so we have some limits, but we really want to hear from you if you need help with these things. So please contact your service coordinator. If you're not sure who that is, no worries. You can go on the Options and Advocacy website. I'll put that down in the description of this video. And you can email Winter No, who is the Autism Resource Center program coordinator, and she can hook you up with the person you need to be talking to. So that's all about coping skills today. If you have any questions, please let us know. Leave them down in the comments. Again, shoot us an email. And I hope you have a great day.